We have a new friendly face up here, Commissioner Brian Burek. Welcome and welcome back.
Thank you very much.
We're honored to have you here. He was sworn in yesterday, and he's hit the ground running. We had a whirlwind day yesterday, going over a lot of things, but he's of course, having served here 8 years, he knows the routine, and we're just so happy to have you here.
Thank you.
And we'll have an opportunity later in the agenda for all of us to make comments, but I would be remiss if I didn't welcome you. Before we start with the Pledge of Allegiance, a couple of housekeeping items. Just ask if you have any type of an electronic communication device, if you'd be kind enough to put it on silent or vibrate. We would appreciate that courtesy. We'll note that the meeting is being recorded. Old guy like me, I still say on tape, but it's being recorded, and also being live streamed as we're here. We always start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. We would ask you to remain standing for a brief moment of silence. And Commissioner Burek, would you be kind enough to lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. We'll have a brief moment of silence. Thank you. Vanessa, would you mind calling the roll, please?
Commissioner Spielvogel? Here. Commissioner Beer?
Present.
Commissioner Vogler?
Here, we have a quorum. We always have two opportunities for public comment, one in just a few moments and one prior to adjournment. We would ask that if you do have a comment or question, those would be the two opportunities for you. We'd note that if your issue at hand is perhaps a federal or a state issue, we would respectfully suggest that you talk to your federal or state representatives. The same would be true if it's a local municipal issue, that you talk to your local folks. But if it's a county issue, you've come to the right place. We'd love to hear from you. As a courtesy to people's time, if you could try to limit your comments to 5 minutes or so, we greatly appreciate that. Under row officer reports, now I know that Mrs. Crawford, our registered recorder, does have something on the agenda later, but we always set aside time for any of our row officers if they have anything over and above what you have on the agenda.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tammy. Always good to see you. Public comments. We will open it up for public comments, and the first hand I saw was Mrs. Lambs. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning, everyone. I wanted to welcome Brian back also. I'm very happy. You will do a wonderful job for us. Thank you. And the other thing, I always say this, when you ask someone to come up and speak, would you say their names? We people don't know that. Thank you very much.
Good point. We've been trying our best to adhere. That's a very good request,
Yes.
and you've made it a couple times. And if we slip, you please wave
yes.
and catch us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Mr. Henley, I think I saw your hand go up. Andrew Henley.
Sorry. So thank you. My name is Andrew Henley. I'm with the Lawrence County Federated Library System. And so I wanted to just give a brief understanding about the library system because it's been very popular recently. Newcastle Public Library not only services the community that is every municipality except for Mahoning Township, Bessemer Borough, North Beaver Township, Wayne Township, and Elwood City Borough. Every other municipality in Lawrence County, the Newcastle Public Library serves. In addition to that hat, I also wear a hat for our system administration. And so that system is the Lawrence County Federated Library System, which services all of Lawrence County and is components of the F.D. Campbell Memorial Library in Bessemer, the Newcastle Public Library, and the Elwood City Public Library. And so on a county level, we have a federated system that we operate, and we provide services to all of the municipalities through that arm. But something that many people don't also know is that we service 4 different counties through the Newcastle District Library. This is a designation provided by the state where they separated all of the territories into districts. And the Newcastle District Library services all of the individuals within Mercer County, Lawrence County, Butler County, and Armstrong County. So it's not uncommon that I have a meeting in Kittanning or I have a meeting up in Greenville. And so the services are wide reaching, but at each level, we provide different consultative services and services available to the patrons. And so on the district level, we provide ebooks, audiobooks, and e-magazines for every resident within those 4 counties. We also provide reference services as for any questions or research opportunities that might present itself. We also provide access to tutor.com, which is a tutoring system that students with a library card can sign on and provide one-on-one tutoring, whether it be elementary tutoring or even college level tutoring. And so these services are all taken care of through the district. As far as the federated system goes, which is only for Lawrence County, we provide outreach services for our bookmobile within every municipality that's in Lawrence County. In addition to that, we coordinate with the other 2 libraries, all 3 libraries collectively, and meet on a quarterly basis to talk about the ongoings of the federated system and the resources that we all operate under. And then on the Newcastle level, we operate the facility that we are in Newcastle and provide similar services that people would have at a typical library, checking in and out the physical books, as well as the open to the public for any sort of reference questions or circulation questions, or we also operate a federal repository for government records. But with that designation from the state, the county, as well as the public library, we follow a very specific code that the Pennsylvania Commonwealth has set forth. And in that code, we have to be open to the public 64 hours. We have to provide reference services for 64 hours. We have to provide circulation services for 64 hours a week, as well as having somebody that can step in to assist any of the member libraries within these 4 counties on a 64-hour basis. And so when we look at that, we also have a requirement to spend 12% of our expenditures as a federated system on books and collection materials. And so far to date, we've been able to achieve that. And so where I look at this is that the finances of the library and the library system and the library district are very complex because we're essentially operating 3 different businesses out of one building, and we keep that kosher. We're audited every year, and we make sure that all of the finances are in order. And by law, we have to follow them, of course. So I'm grateful for the other 2 libraries that are within our county system, the F.D. Campbell Memorial Library, which I was the director of previously, and then our counterpart in Elwood City, and Veronica Pasella, who is down there. Amanda Musco is out in Bessemer. And so between the 4 counties, the 3 libraries in Lawrence County and Newcastle Public Library, we provide such a great service for our community. And I come to you to try to give an explanation of how these 3 different entities operate in orchestra with one another so that we can provide these services to over 400,000 residents within these 4 counties. So thank you.
Well, and thank you, Andrew. That's very helpful. As a member of the public here today, you're not obligated to take questions from us if you choose not to, but would you be willing to?
I'm more than happy to.
Okay, thank you. I only have 2, and then I'll ask, again, if you're so willing, I'll ask my colleagues if they have any questions. You mentioned, this is somewhat technical, but in the southern end of the county, you mentioned Wayne Township and the borough of Elwood City. But how about Elport Borough and Perry Township? Would they be tied in with the Elwood City Library?
I believe Elport is, and then Perry Township. I'd have to consult with the the state doesn't, but these territories are just divided out by the state.
I see.
But they are serviced.
Right.
However, which library we service. On the federated system, yes, we're servicing them.
Sure, through the whole county. So
Yes,
thank
that's
you.
correct.
Second question, and without having you to have to go into a whole lot of detail, but what are the primary funding sources for, let's just talk about the county federated system. What are the primary funding sources for the federated system?
Sure. In the 1990s, the county formed by virtue of a resolution, the Lawrence County Federated Library System. And then at that moment, all of the municipalities in Lawrence County became eligible without charge for a library card. Previous to that, if you were a Shenango Township resident, you had to pay for a library card. And we're grateful for the commissioners to have done that because we follow suit with, I believe, a very strong library system, the Butler County Federated Library System, where every county resident in Butler has a library card, has access to a library card through that system. So Lawrence County is one of those as well. As far as the funding streams go, by virtue of the state, it makes it easier for the state to fund the library systems because the money comes from the state into the federated system. And in our bylaws, we have a formula that separates the money into the outreach services that we provide as a federated system. That's the bookmobile and any advertisements that go along with what we do from that. Then a portion goes to Elwood City, Bessemer, and North Beaver Township now, but FD Campbell and Newcastle Public. So the state uses the federated system to say, determine how the funds will be separated, and we do that. And in an annual meeting, we decide, well, the formula is already set, we just approve the budget. And then from the county commissioners, a portion is given to the federated library system, and then using that same formula, it's divided into each of the member libraries.
That being part of our county real estate property tax.
That's correct.
Do any of the municipalities, the city of Newcastle, the boroughs, the townships, do any of them allocate dollars to any of the three libraries, to your knowledge?
Yes, so from my previous workings in Bessemer or in North Beaver Township, so if anyone's familiar, Bessemer Library reorganized and separated from their municipal government to form its own nonprofit organization, and they relocated to a much nicer building, and just so happens to be situated in North Beaver Township. But it's right on that line, and it still services the borough of Bessemer. And actually, a referendum was passed by the residents of Bessemer in order to fund the library system that services their community. And so there is a referendum in place in Bessemer, as well as Newcastle. So for Newcastle Public Library, there's a referendum that was voted on in the 1960s, as well as in 1911, that a portion of their millage would then go towards funding the Newcastle Public Library. And so I don't want to comment on Elwood because I'm not sure just yet, but I believe there's a referendum in place there as well.
I really appreciate your willingness to take questions, because again, you walked in here and figured you'd make your comments and that would be it. And again,
Happy to take
by virtue, you're not obligated to answer us, but thank you for that. And since I've asked some questions, it would only be right for me to see if Commissioner Spielvogel might have any.
I don't have any questions, but I appreciate the explanation and the clarity. It is rather complex. I was trying to write it down and
I have a flow chart if you would like one.
Thank you. I think it's more complex than we do at the courthouse. So I appreciate the explanation because that is always very important for people to understand just exactly how things are, number one, organized and financially supported. So thank you.
Thank you. That flow chart would be helpful.
Yeah, I'm happy to provide it.
Commissioner Burek, and I know you have knowledge of this, obviously, and some history yourself, but if you have any comments or questions.
First, I want to welcome Andrew here. Many years ago, I was an active member of the Lawrence County Historical Society, and I met Andrew when he was, even as a very young man, dedicated volunteer with the Historical Society. He used to help people with their genealogy research and other research into the history of Lawrence County. And so It's good to see him in the position he's in now. I know he has a master's degree in library science and extremely well qualified, and it's great to see him in his current position. Knowing I was going to, a few weeks ago, of course, I was appointed by the judges. Knowing I was going to take office, I made a list of people I wanted to meet with, and he was one of them. As you all may recall, I was one of the commissioners who played a leading role in establishing the county ordinance back in the 1990s to set up the county federated library system. I grew up in the city of Newcastle, had a public library card, but when I became commissioner and realized that many people in the county did not have access without paying a membership fee to a county, to one of the 3 libraries in Lawrence County, I worked with the city, and through the creation of the Lawrence County Learning Center, we also created the Lawrence County Federated Library System, and we established the funding mechanism as well. So I'm a huge supporter of the library system. I will continue to do that in my reassumed role as county commissioner, and I'd like to be learning more over the next few weeks as well. But thank you for being here today and for that information.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Again, to conclude, it's very thoughtful of you to be willing to answer our questions. But again, you weren't obligated to. So thank you for that courtesy. We greatly appreciate it. You're always welcome. Thanks, Andrew. Other questions or comments from the public at this time? Once again, we'll open it back up before we adjourn if anybody has anything else. So thank you all. Under fiscal and contractual, we have before us 2 repository properties. As you all know, that properties that have not been sold at either the free and clear or upset sales under the tax claim law do end up in the repository, and people can come in and bid on those properties, but the bids have to be reviewed by the governing bodies in which the property is located. And we have 2 in front of us today that are located within the city limits of the city of Newcastle. And it looks as though both the school district and the city of Newcastle have approved them. I do want to note that it looks like up at the top right of both pages, it looks like they got them transposed. It looks as though where it says municipal copy, that should read school district copy and vice versa. Am I reading that right? And I think it's true with the other one. So Vanessa, I don't think that should preclude us from voting, but perhaps if we can let the tax claim office know that they need to be switched. Are you folks comfortable with that?
Yes.
Brian, you're okay with this? Thank you. So the first parcel we have today, what resolution number would this be, Vanessa?
112.
112, thank you.
Mhm.
This is a parcel located on South Atlantic Avenue in the city of Newcastle, parcel number 06081500. And the purchaser is Mr. Paul Maldonado. I hope I pronounced his name right. He made a $500 bid. The city of Newcastle approved it, and the Newcastle area school district approved it. And all the documents appear to be in order, and now it would be up to us to do likewise. So let me open it up and see if there are any questions or concerns. No, you're okay? Would someone care to make a motion to approve this, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you both. Again, any comments or discussion?
Just good catch on noting that the school and municipal one were flip-flops, but good catch.
Thank you. It doesn't happen very often with me, but thank you. Well, the motion has been made to go along with both the school district and the city in approving this request. There being no other comments, I'll ask Vanessa to call the roll, please.
Commissioner Spielvogel?
Yes.
Commissioner Buick?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. And the next one, which would be proposed resolution 113, is also a repository property, once again in the city of Newcastle, located on Pearson Street, parcel number 04259-500. The purchaser is Argyle Properties LLC, parentheses, Mary Mady, close parentheses. The bid amount is $550. Both the Newcastle Area School District and the City of Newcastle have given their approval to this. As noted, we'll ask tax claim to switch the listings up at the top. But with that, a motion could be in order for us to consider this, please.
So moved.
Second.
And I'll see if either of you have any questions or concerns.
Just that the copies are flipped again between the school and the municipality.
And I appreciate that you're both willing to still accommodate this with the understanding that it will be corrected. Yes, thank you. If there are no other concerns or questions, I'll ask Vanessa to call the roll, please.
Commissioner Spielvogel?
Yes.
Commissioner Buick?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I neglected to mention at the outset, these documents are all available if anybody wishes to see them. And Debbie, I'll give you my packet when we're done.
How many are left in the repository?
I don't know the answer to that. Would either of you know? And it'd be unfair of me to ask you, although you might know.
Not at this moment.
I might have an inkling upstairs in my office, but it would have been from the last numbers at the end of last year.
I think we ran a story recently saying there are only a few left, so that's fine.
Yeah, Mrs. Foster could, or one of our staff could give
Right.
that information. It's a good question, thank you. We move on to the warrant registers, and did they do this when you were Commissioner before? This is a listing of the checks and bills that have gone through the controller's office. And we basically accept this document.
Unless you don't want to, we could try and see what happens.
But I'm not sure if they did this when you were Commissioner before. But we bring it to a public meeting. It's a listing of all the checks that have been cut, for lack of a better term.
I believe at that time it was on the agenda, but we didn't actually have the printout in front of us.
Okay.
Of course, every purchase order was reviewed and signed by at least two commissioners at that
Yes.
time. But this is nice to see the listing of bills in one document, so thank you.
Certainly, and I'll give the two of you all the time you need to look it over. Please take your time, and whenever you're through looking at it, I could entertain a motion to accept. By the way, these registers are dated March 30, March 29, and March 28 of 2023.
Just for clarification, these are the checks that have already been cut to pay the bills. Or they're
Yes.
Yes.
cut, but they're waiting to be released upon our approval.
That's my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
I will move to accept all three.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or comments on the warrant registers? I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Commissioner Spielvogel?
Yes.
Commissioner Buick?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. The minutes of the March 28 are in our packet. Give the time that you folks need to look them over, and whenever you're ready, I could take a motion to adopt the minutes, please.
Only because I was not present at that meeting, I will abstain on the minutes from last week's meeting.
Certainly. Thank you.
I will move that they be accepted.
Thank you, Loretta. I will second the motion and ask for a roll call, please.
Commissioner Spielvogel?
Yes.
Commissioner Buick?
I abstain.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Thank you all. Under written communications, we have one document that has come in since last week. This is an Act 14 notification pertaining to the Country Roads Mobile Home Park in Shenango Township. Dear Commissioners, this is to advise you that Country Roads Mobile Home Park is applying to the Pennsylvania DEP for renewal of their National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, permit number PA 0040380 for the existing wastewater treatment plant serving the mobile home park. This permit allows the discharge of treated sewage to the surface waters of the Commonwealth, and the proposed discharge will take place in Shenango Township. It is signed by Mr. Marvin McAfoose. I hope I pronounced his name right. The operator of the Country Roads Mobile Home Park. We periodically receive these notifications. The state law requires that we be advised. We don't have any regulatory authority over this. It's simply a matter of noting for the record that we are in receipt of this document. Let me see if either of my colleagues have any questions about it.
No.
I just don't recall. I assume that the township itself was notified of these permits as well.
My understanding is that they are. Sometimes when they come in sometimes we get them from the engineers of these organizations. And you would remember this, and sometimes they will list who has been copied.
That's why I asked, because it's not on here, but I assume Shenango was copied.
That's my assumption as well. Is there a motion to accept this document?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you both. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'd ask Vanessa to call the roll, please.
Commissioner Spielvogel?
Yes.
Commissioner Buick?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Under reports, we always give a little time during the meeting for each commissioner to offer any reports they may have, and today we start with Commissioner Spielvogel.
Great. I will just make it brief and again, welcome Ryan. He certainly did hit the ground running, meeting after meeting with the three of us and getting calendar dates put together. So just looking forward to working with you and having things run smoothly.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a very busy day yesterday, and it's going to continue to be busy because a lot of people in this courthouse want to sit down and speak with him. And we're working on that. It
Yes.
can't all happen in 1 or 2 days. And he needs some time just to settle in. And again, it's certainly an advantage of his having been here for those 8 years. He has certainly a real grasp on the organization aspect of county government. Now, some of the names and faces have changed, and so that's one of the things as we move forward. We'll be sitting down with various department heads and other elected officials to give Brian the opportunity to meet some of those folks. And it's going to take a little while, but as Loretta said, and I would concur, Mr. Buick has hit the ground running. So with that, Brian, if you have anything to add, this is your opportunity.
First, I just want to thank Amy Lamb for being here and her suggestion, and I want to thank Andrew Henley for being here from the Lawrence County Federated Library System. My prepared remarks this morning, I just want to thank Commissioners Vogler and Bill Vogel for attending my oath of office ceremony yesterday, and for Mrs. Crawford as well, and welcoming me back to the Lawrence County Government Center. It was a very busy day yesterday, just some practical things. But I want to thank all the staff under the commissioners for their help in getting me set up and running, especially HR for all the onboarding, IT department for computer and email access, maintenance for all their setup for the events yesterday, and the chief clerk and deputy chief clerk for providing me with all the information I needed and requested, and giving me the calendar for all many upcoming meetings and events. I also want to thank all 4 judges on the Lawrence County Court of Common Pleas for appointing me to fill the recent vacancy on the Board of Commissioners. County judges have a difficult job. They preside over many difficult cases and court proceedings in criminal law, civil law, family law, and PFA hearings. I had the privilege of working with or knowing all 4 judges previously, and they were all excellent attorneys before election to their current position. And Lawrence County is truly fortunate to have the judges we have on the bench. That concludes my remarks for this morning. Thank you both.
Thank you very kindly. Well, we'll move on to our resolutions. And this morning, our first agency is MHDS, Mental Health Developmental Services. Mr. Scott Baldwin. I know that table is kind of up front, closer to us. Are you still able to, so that we can pick up what you have to say, Scott? Scott, we always appreciate your stopping by. And before you start, Vanessa, this would be 114, am I correct?
Correct.
Thank you very much. Mr. Baldwin, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome, Commissioner Buick.
Thank you.
We are looking at an amendment to a contract with Clover Psychological Associates for this fiscal year 22-23. The original contract amount was for $80,000. We're requesting this to be increased to $480,000. And the reason that is, Clover Psychological is a specialty service that manages sex offenders. And unfortunately, we have seen an increase in referrals to Clover Psychological, which we need an additional $40,000 to cover the clinical services. The $360,000 is an investment in keeping this provider in our county. We have seen, just in the western part of Pennsylvania, providers that specialize in sex offender care are very few and far between. We're very, very fortunate to have one in our county. So just meeting with Clovers, what do we need to invest into them to keep them here? Part of that was expanding their clinical space. They needed to hire some additional therapists to handle the increased caseload, but also appropriate clinical space for them to work in. So the $360,000 is human services block grant dollars to expand the services there, but also to invest to keep them here. It would create a very hardship for us to see that provider. So not only did we invest in that, but also the state health choices reclassified them as a specialty clinic, which increased their rate, which again is another commitment to supporting them. So I guess, is there any questions you guys have for that?
Well, I'll start. Thank you for presenting this to us. And I think you may have answered my question during your briefing. You referenced the Human Services Block Grant, which I'm interpreting that to say that the Commonwealth is going to pay for at least most of this increase or maybe all of it. Can you clarify what share comes out of the county's general fund and what share comes from the state?
Right, so the human service block grant is 100% of the state. And then in addition to that, the health choices dollars is what pays for people that go there. So their insurance that covers it. Okay. So in addition to us investing it into the physical plan, the continued long-term investment of the health choices program is also increased as well. But as for county dollars, this is 100% covered under state block grant dollars.
I appreciate your answer very much. What I'll try to do when we ask questions, I'll try to rotate if you don't mind. If I slip up, please forgive me. But Commissioner Burek, do you have a question for Scott?
I do. Just to clarify, you stated, maybe you misspoke, maybe you did not, you stated increase from 80 to 480,000. The resolution in front of us states 440,000. Is the correct figure 440 or 480?
Do you have the resolution, Scott? I have it here if you need it. Okay. You caught something. I suspect you caught it.
It's my one for.
Our resolution says 440 and you stated 480. I just wanted to clarify the amount.
Oh, it does say 480 on this one.
Then our resolution should be corrected to state 480.
480.
Now, my second question was,
Is Mr. Burek correct? It should be 480?
It should be 480.
Thank you. You need to see this. This is what Mr. Baldwin just handed to us, and I'll
Right.
send it down your way.
Okay.
thank you. And then my second question was, will this require you answered part of my question. There is funding available. Will this require, is there a line item in your budget already to cover this additional expense, or will there have to be a budget transfer later?
That's a great question.
We'd have to look at the budget itself to see that.
Due to the nature of the block grant funding, it should be, no transfer would be needed. The money is in the account, basically holding it. So there should not be a transfer for it.
Thank you. And then,
I'm sorry, Commissioner, the mental health went to a block grant.
I know it's changed since I was here before,
Yeah,
so I have a lot to learn about the new budget
It
procedures.
basically took the categorical funding streams out of the mental health system, and basically they have a lump sum to distribute as with what the contract states. So they have some flexibility within their own line items now, kind of washed them out, so they have discretion over that.
Just a side note, when I was commissioner previously, I worked very closely with the director of at the time, MHMR. I know your name is now MHDS, and inappropriately so. So I'll be learning more about how the current funding streams work. The only other question I had, and I don't know if you can answer this currently, another side note, one of my previous positions with the Commonwealth, I was a corrections counselor in the state prison system, and I worked with a lot of convicted sex offenders. They were nearing release, coming up with home plans and treatment plans. Do you know how many Lawrence County residents are receiving services through Clover
I don't have
at this time?
It's,
I'm sure it has increased, but
yeah,
I'm just curious how many Lawrence County residents are currently treated or in the pipeline to be
Well,
treated.
they've changed the registration requirements significantly. There's a federal level too, so.
I was just curious, but I can get that information later.
Yeah, it's.
Can you get that information from Mr. Burek?
Thank you. That's all the questions I had.
Well, we've been fortunate, so when you were here, John Klonotic was over at MHDS. After John, it was Joe, and then it was me. So there's been not a lot of change in movement there, but glad to be here to help you guys.
Thank you for what you do. That's a very important department, obviously. It serves a lot of people. So thank you for what you do, and Joe, what you do. So.
Thank you, sir. Loretta, do you have questions?
No questions, but just even something for Brian, the change to the block grant system that we have has made it so much better. I know for sure back in the day with you would hear different departments say, well, that should fall under juvenile probation, that should fall under CYS, that's not part of our money. So this allows that that argument to be gone. And I know that working, Scott and I go way, way back, too far to even think about these days, but that it has been, they've done so very well with the expenditures and with doing the best thing that they can with the money for the county. And I think that we're in good hands with, as we were with John, Joe, and now with Scott. That will be something that I think you'll find very interesting, coming from exactly from where you were even before in the correction system, that things have changed. Still have a lot of work to do in all of those arenas, so gladly looking forward to working with you on those different things. Yeah.
Just a final comment that I'm glad to hear that, because previously transfers within the NHMR budget were frequently a large part of our weekly budget meetings. I'm glad you have more flexibility now to move money around.
Well, the block grant is incredible. When you the transferring, it really is managed as a big pot of money that gives us a lot of flexibility.
And they manage it well. There's, no question with that. And money is certainly, we like to hear, and we generally do hear from Scott 100% funded. So those are the things that we like to hear, is that there's not part of any of the county general fund monies.
Scott, may I ask you something?
Yeah.
This is the resolution that Cindy had sent over. So can you just resend this to me?
Yep.
I have this one. It does say 480, for us it says 440. Okay, thank you.
I'm sure you'll find, and you probably are already finding, that we're blessed with some very conscientious, very professional department heads, and Mr. Baldwin is certainly one of them. We're very fortunate to have him here. And I think you'll enjoy a great working relationship with him and his staff.
Yes.
With that all being said, assuming there are no other questions,
I'm just curious, you guys are now in the church right up here, okay. And when I was here, MHMR released space downtown Newcastle, but I know that the county has since acquired the former, it was the second UP church, and you guys are in there, so I haven't seen that, toured that facility yet, and the only other facility I want to tour, I haven't been to the new 911 center. When I was here, our 911 center was in the second floor of the cathedral building, so.
Yes.
But I'll be
We're
visiting
settling and ready, just holler.
you guys within the week, so.
okay. Before you leave, Scott will entertain a motion for Resolution 114, noting the corrected dollar amount of $440,000 we will scratch or strike, and in its place put $480,000. I'm assuming everything else in the resolution would remain. But that being said, with that correction, may I have a motion for Resolution 114?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you both. Any final concerns or comments? Thank you. I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Commissioner Steelvogel?
Yes.
Commissioner Buick?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes?
Motion carries.
Thank you so much. Scott, as always, thank you.
Thank you.
Guys. Have a great day.
Yes.
The next three items deal with children and youth services. And we have Mike Grippo from CYS and Lisa Haddad from juvenile probation. Are you tag teaming today?
I'm gonna take the first
Yeah,
one.
and I'll take the next two.
If that's okay.
Of course it is. Good to see you, Lisa.
You as well.
Glad to have you here, and we'll turn it over to you.
What we have is a contract for Corisoft LLC. We actually are currently in contract with them. This is an amendment to that contract, and I'll explain why. Effective yesterday, juvenile probation is starting to use the PADRE, which is the Pennsylvania Detention Risk Assessment Instrument, to help aid our decision-making process when it comes to the requests of police wanting to detain juveniles and youth. So the detention risk assessment, the PADRE, in essence, gives us a score based on circumstances such as the nature of the charges that the juveniles being possibly receiving, whether or not the juvenile has had access or has been in our system prior, whether or not the juvenile has had flight risks or any other issues, et cetera, and it'll give us a score at the bottom. And based on that score, we'll in essence determine whether we securely detain the juvenile, whether we can use an alternative to detention such as shelter care, or if we release the child to the parent or guardian to ensure that they be returned to the courts. The alternative to detention is shelter care, and that's the only other alternative that we have. We are requesting to add an additional component of electronic monitoring as an alternative. So in order to do so, we need to increase our electronic monitoring units that we have. So by this amendment, we are increasing our units by 2, and also being able to have one on the shelf that we're not charged for until we put that unit into play. So this contract amendment is, like I said, adding an additional 2 units of electronic monitoring with one on the shelf. So that we are gonna have alternatives. Secure detention, I'm sure you are aware of, and Commissioner, I'm sure you're gonna be aware of. Finding secure detention facilities across the state is a huge problem at the moment. And instead of having to, and also shelter care beds are also a difficult thing to find at the moment. So instead of being able to just release a kid outright, we would like to still be able to have some alternative ways of being able to monitor that juvenile until they're brought back before the courts. So having electronic monitoring as an alternative to detention would be very helpful for our department.
I appreciate that explanation. It's very helpful, Lisa. To your knowledge, is there any fiscal impact from a budgetary standpoint on your department's budget as it relates to this?
So this would be coming out of our needs-based budget, which is our budget that we share with CYS.
Yes.
So under this line item, it's an 80-20 split, 80% coming from the state, 20% coming from the county. As this wasn't in our previous request for, this could potentially be an overage. I'm not sure what the dollar amount would, it would be very minimal. This is 20% of a slight increase. Could potentially put us a little bit over what we had originally budgeted, but we will make that request in our needs-based budget for July, starting to be able to cover that increase.
And that request, of course, through the needs-based budget goes to the Commonwealth.
Correct.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I believe Loretta would be next for any questions.
No, coming from that system and working with the system, I understand that there is that need, and good that we have that ability, the availability of that contract to be increased. Definite need for it, yes.
Thank you. Brian, questions?
I don't believe I've had a chance to meet this, your first name's Lisa?
Yes.
I don't know if you know this or not, but the time I left office before until today, I actually spent 5 years as a teacher at Youth Development Center Newcastle, which was a secure detention facility for teens. And unfortunately, one of the reasons I'm back here today is because that place closed. I loved my career teaching juveniles and the detention facility there, but the state, in their wisdom or lack thereof, closed that facility, and I lost my teaching career. But so I do have quite a bit of knowledge of juvenile detention facilities, and I understand. And you hear on the news all the time, Allegheny County used to have Schumann Detention Center. They closed that. So I understand that there's a huge cost to these facilities, but the flip side is, if you have some of these young people who are highly disturbed and have been abused or neglected and they're violent, there's a cost to society to having them out. So an alternative is to, at least this is an electronic monitoring system, correct? So I wholeheartedly support any efforts to keep tabs on these young people until they hopefully mature and outgrow. And some do and some don't. They're violent ways, but so I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, sir. If there are no other questions or comments, I would entertain a motion for approval of proposed resolution 115.
So moved.
Second.
Any further comments or discussion? I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Spielvogel?
Yes.
Commissioner Beer?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Lisa.
It's always nice to have you here. You're welcome to stay, but if you have other things to do, we certainly understand.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Mike Grippo from CYS. Mike, we always also enjoy having you here. It looks like you have two resolutions for us today, 116 and 117.
Yeah.
And with that, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, the first one's the ward home. On March 7th, the commissioners approved all of it, which bought ward home. Little did I know at that time, the ward home, we have a 17-year-old child in our custody that needs to be placed. She's going to independent living, which is the ward home. At that time, I didn't realize that the ward home was independent, so they have their own W-9. So now I had to reach out and send out a whole new contract to the ward home and get that, which if I would have known at the time, I would have done both of them at the same time.
Certainly.
Yeah.
That's very understandable.
But she's supposed to be getting a physical by within a week or so, it should be placed. We just can't find it.
Mike, the address we have here says McKeesport. Is that the location of the
Of
officer of the facility?
the Auberly to
I see.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let me see if Commissioner Burek has any questions for you.
No.
Okay, thank
because
you.
both W-9s have the same address.
I see.
This is maybe like a corporate
Yeah,
office
one's
or
Ward,
main
one's
office.
Auberly, but they both have the same.
Loretta, do you have questions for Mike?
Other than Brian, I will tell you, Mike always says this will be the last time you will see me.
I can
Yes.
vouch as soon as he came in. This is the last time. Okay, Mike.
We always enjoy your company. You're always welcome. You know that. So obviously, Mike, you're recommending that we give favorable consideration to this proposal, is that right?
Right.
That being said, I could entertain then a motion for proposed resolution 116.
So, oh, you can.
I second it then.
Thank you.
I'm trying to get in once where I can make the
You
motion, you
can.
make the second.
You can take the rest.
So moved.
Mr. During moves.
Just to shake things up.
Okay.
It has been appropriately moved and seconded for resolution 116. We'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Spielvogel?
Yes.
Commissioner Buick?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And by the way, I should offer you an apology. I maybe should have said right at the outset that this being your first meeting, if any of these cause you any pause and you'd like us to table anything for a week or so, you're very much in order to make such a motion. Whatever makes you comfortable. Mike, the next item you have is a proposal for one of the CYS employees to participate in the Child Welfare Education and Leadership Program known as CWEL at the University of Pittsburgh, and that the Commonwealth will reimburse his salary and benefits at a 95% rate, with the understanding that the gentleman will return to county employment for an equal period of time for which his leave is granted. But I'm not sure if this program was in place when you were a commissioner, and if, does it ring a bell with you?
Yeah, there was something similar.
Oh,
So yeah,
good.
that's great that our staff's willing to go back for additional education with the commitment to come back and work for the agency. So I support that.
That's great. I was gonna have Mike give the 10-minute discourse on, but you obviously have a knowledge of it and an understanding of it. Let's see, I'm gonna see if Loretta has questions.
No.
Okay, thank you. And Brian, do you have other questions on this proposal?
No.
Did we overlook anything? I didn't give you a chance to talk
No,
about it. I'm
you said it
sorry.
perfectly.
No, what do you have for us other than what we've already?
No, I mean, John Bankus started a few months after I did. I worked with him. We were both intake caseworkers. So yeah, he's a great guy, good quality guy, and he's a manager, a supervisor. So he deserves it.
Any rough idea of when he might start?
I'm gonna think in the fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mike on this proposal? Again, I'm sorry, I
You're fine.
kind of jumped ahead of you. If there are no other questions, this is proposed resolution 117. I would entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. If there are no other concerns, we'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Spielvogel?
Yes.
Commissioner Buick?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank
Mike, you're welcome to stay, but if you have to head back up to the Elmira building, we understand.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Get a few
sir.
more contracts ready.
No more. I'm done until July.
I'll expect an email today.
Oh, that'd be great.
Well, as we noted earlier, it's a pleasure to have our elected register and recorder with us, Mrs. Tammy Crawford. And Tammy, this would be proposed resolution 118. If you'd like to please have a seat and fill us in on what your proposal is today.
Good morning and welcome back, Commissioner Buick.
Thank
Great
you.
to have you back.
It's great to see you again. Tammy was a longtime employee when I was here before and does a great job, and I was very happy that Jan Calajana, who was a legend, really. She did so much for the county for so many years that she was succeeded by one of her staff members who had great knowledge and experience. So good to see you again.
Thank you. So I'm requesting for approval to enter into a contract for services with Gila LLC, who they do business as MSB, Municipal Services Bureau. It's for an online payment acceptance solution, and it includes credit and debit cards and e-checks. The Register Recorder's Office currently uses Allpaid as a vendor for these services. However, we're implementing the ability to e-file estate documents, and Allpaid does not provide a gateway for this process. The fees that are paid by the customer currently through Allpaid are 2.95%, and that fee will go down for the customer to 2.60%. There will be no cost to the Register and Recorder's Office for this service. However, there will be initial charge for each terminal. We need 3 terminals. These will be paid for out of the Records Improvement Fund and the Register Wills Automation Fund. They won't be paid out of the general fund. And the contract is for 3 years, and at the end of the initial term, it will renew for an additional 2 years.
Tammy, thank you so much for that. That good explanations are very helpful for me. I'll see if Mr. Burek has questions.
Good explanation, thank you.
Commissioner Spielvogel?
None.
Thank you. So you are requesting or recommending that we give approval to this proposal?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. With that being said, I'll ask for a motion for proposed resolution 118.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll ask for a roll call.
Commissioner Spielvogel?
Yes.
Commissioner Buick?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Tammy, we always enjoy having you here, and you're welcome to stay, but I know you're a busy lady. If you have to head back up, we understand.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Before we move on to proposed resolution 119, I see a couple of our folks from the assessor's office. Did we overlook something, or was there anything we needed? I don't want to keep you if you have to.
We were just here because the interim bills went out, about 2,500 of them, last week. So we were here if anybody had any questions on that, but it doesn't appear that anybody from the public is here.
Well, Mrs. Lamb is still here, and Mr. Henley is still here. Do you have any information for us in case they do have any questions?
No, they're just billed now. We are getting phone calls. So.
Yes.
But
my understanding, Mr. Hardister sent us an email, and some folks did see an increase in their assessed value of their property. Others did see a decrease based on the information that you garnered from this.
That's correct.
And I know you have been getting calls, and it's my bad memory. I guess I did ask JR and he's in Harrisburg. So thank you both for being here. And now that it's all coming back to me. So I appreciate that you've taken the time. If you can stick around a little bit, in fact, I think maybe Mrs. Lamb might have questions.
Just a clarification, I don't know, are you from JR's office or?
yes, I'm Bruce Peterson, the senior appraiser from these.
Oh, so you're from the assessor's office. Okay.
Yes.
I just didn't know where you were from.
Chuck Masters is the also an appraiser.
Thank you for being here. Thank you. That's all.
Thanks, Andy. Well, thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate you took the time to join us.
We're good if there's nobody else that has any questions. We can go back to work.
Back upstairs. Thank you both.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Just one thing I saw on the schedule, tomorrow there's the Board of Assessment and Appeal.
Yes, we have a meeting at 10 o'clock.
I'm sure you guys will provide me with the names of the people who are currently on that board.
We can do that right now. Who are the 3 gentlemen?
The 3 people on the Board of Assessment.
Jack McConaughey, Tom Dean is the chairman, and Joe Carafino.
Joe, all 3 of them have real estate backgrounds.
Right.
Joe is from Wayne Township, Mr. McConaughey is from Mahoning Township, and Mr. Dean is from Wilmington Township. So
Yes.
it's a bit of a geographic mix.
I think that Tom was on the board when you were commissioner.
I would say I do know Tom, yes. Very good.
He's been here quite a while too.
Do you have any other questions for these gentlemen?
No, I went in yesterday to the assessor's office to see. There's only Bruce and Jen are still there. Everyone else that was there when I was there has since retired, and I met Chuck and Liz and Maria, so.
Great. That's great. Well, gentlemen, thank you both.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Okay, thanks, guys.
We have before us proposed resolution 119. This pertains to the, bear with me a minute. This pertains to the coroner's office, and it is a budget amendment looking at a figure of $32,962 from the prior year balance of Act 122 revenue. And we are forwarding that to the same line item, the same dollar amount, based upon the request of the coroner, basically moving it from prior year balance into this year. I hope I'm stating that correctly.
Yeah, I believe it's carried.
This is proposed resolution 108.
But
Let me see, I'll start with Loretta and see if she has any questions.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Burek, any concerns about this?
Just a quick question, if you can refresh my memory, what's the 30-second version of Act 122? Do you know, Ian?
I'd have to look, not offhand, I don't know what 122 would entail.
Obviously, I'll spend the next week starting to look back at the county budget. I'm sure when I was here before, you guys remember the old green and white paper from the dot matrix printers? It was about 3 feet wide.
Yeah.
Our budget printouts were on that, and we spent it. Obviously,
Oh my
the computer system is newer, and we have a new Munis system, so I'll be reacquainting myself with the county budget here over the next week, so I'm good for today.
We could find that out for.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You remember that old paper? You ever seen it? That was from the archives.
I was born in the 90s.
Didn't it have little holes?
The holes in the side, the little wheels on the side, and the
Yes.
little spokes that the sheets would come out, and it would be like this.
Yes, oh my gosh.
Well, this is proposed resolution 119. If there are no other comments or questions, I would entertain a motion for its approval.
So moved.
Second, and I assume the coroner submitted this for approval, so.
That's correct, Vanessa, it came from the coroner?
It actually came from the controller.
Oh,
The
controller's
coroner
office.
gives it to the controller and then,
So both offices, to your knowledge, are aware?
correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. We'll take a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Spielvogel,
Yes.
Commissioner Burek,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler,
Yes?
motion carries.
Thank you. We have one proposed budget transfer, administrative transfer from adult probation. They are asking for a $28 transfer from their contingency line item into that of community service, and the reason being there is an increase in their insurance premium. So that necessitates this $28 request. I'll see if there are any questions about it.
I move for its adoption.
Second.
Thank you both. If there are no other concerns, I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Commissioner Spielvogel,
Yes.
Commissioner Burek,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. We have one resolution that's been on the table, and I would think that in fairness to our new commissioner, we may want to leave it there and give us an opportunity at some point to talk with you further about it. Add it to the list.
Yes.
I was gonna ask if we could wait at least one more week. There's some information I'd
Absolutely.
like to get related to
Sure.
my understanding is the Economic Development recently lost one of their key staff members, so I'd like to gather more information before we vote on that ordinance.
Absolutely. Certainly respect that.
Thank you.
And we did last week move for the introduction of proposed ordinance 1 of 2023, which would rescind ordinance 4 of 2020. That ordinance from 2020 implemented a $5 fee, allowing the county to impose that fee for non-exempt vehicle registration. And what this ordinance would do would be to rescind that earlier ordinance and remove the $5 fee. It has been formally advertised in the local newspaper and all other appropriate places, but based on guidance from our solicitor, it needs to be tabled at this time and voted on at a later meeting date. So I would entertain a motion to table this proposal, please.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. My recollection of Robert's rules is that motions to table don't necessarily allow or require conversation, but that being said, I would open it up in case either of you have any questions or concerns. on the motion to table?
I was just gonna ask if we could not act on this today, so I support the motion to table.
Great, thank you. I'll ask for anything else, Lorena? I'll ask for a motion on the, for a roll call on the motion to table.
Commissioner Spielvogel?
Yes.
Commissioner Buick?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. A number of announcements. This board will meet once again on Tuesday, April 11 at 10 a.m. It's a public meeting. Today at noon, the Opioid Advisory Board, which is chaired by Commissioner Spielvogel, will be meeting here. That meeting is open to the public.
Yes.
On Friday, April 7th, this week, the courthouse will be closed in observance of the Good Friday. On April 11th at 1:30, that is a Tuesday, the West Central Job Partnership Governing Board, which is comprised of 3 Lawrence County Commissioners